Good morning. So yesterday it was like a break. I posted the thing. It's like one of my very good friend. He passed away at the age of 41 due to massive myocardial infarction. So very sad, very sad. Okay. So say I changed the topic slightly after reading your emails. Initial plan was to go for receptor part 3, right? But I changed it to membrane transport, and this will be discussing slightly in depth due to three major reasons. One, say in the receptors, part 1 and part 2, we have talked about all those GPCRs, correct? Now what is left out is enzyme linked, it is enzyme linked receptors. Now in enzyme linked receptors, if you really look at it, and the ion receptors, right, ion channels, if you really look at it, there'll be lots and lots of names. Yes, they are important, but before we really go for it, it is much better if we go for the membrane transport. After membrane transport, no, listen first. After membrane transport, we'll be talking about sodium potassium pumps, right? Sodium potassium pumps. And then we'll be going for the receptors, because whatever is this part, right, that is part 3 or we can say part 4, all those are slightly independent, right? So that's why we are going by this method. Just in any case, after about say 2 days, so in any case we'll be completing the receptor 3 and receptor 4. When both these things are completed, we'll be going for the action potentials and then the electrical activities across all the nerves, muscles, all muscle types, that will be in progress. Okay, one question which was asked is from the previous lecture, that is, why should we really give beta blockers in heart failure? Because when the heart is already failed, heart is already compromised, so won't it really decrease the efficiency further? Well, the thing is, say beta blockers, they are given for cardiac protection, right? Because if the heart is not protected, then there is major problem. So this is the cardiac protection. That is our primary aim. It is the cardiac protection. Now, why this beta blocker is giving cardiac protection? Very simple reason. It is the beta 1 adrenergic receptor, right? That is what is affecting the heart. What it is doing, it is increasing the heart rate, it is going for the cardiac contractility. But now the heart is like that cashier who is not getting his pay. So if this cashier is not getting his pay, this cashier won't be able to survive if we don't decrease his expenses. Got the idea? That we want to decrease the expenses of this cashier because his pay has been stopped or it has been decreased. So if we decrease his expenses, then he'll be able to survive. Exactly the same way, in order to protect the heart, we have to tell the heart, ke beta, work less but survive. So the moment we block this, beta blockers, they will be blocking beta 1 adrenergic receptor. So now there won't be anyone who will be telling ke chal, jao, heart beat fast. So that will lead to decrease in the heart rate. Right? This is one. Second, many times whenever the heart is compromised, there is overstimulation. Now we are going into slightly more depth, but worth discussing. There is overstimulation of beta 1 adrenergic receptor. When there is overstimulation, it leads to something which is very bad, and that is cardiac. This is cardiac arrhythmias. Cardiac arrhythmias. This is such a deadly topic when we'll be discussing cardiology, because these cardiac arrhythmias, when things go haywire, this is to be stopped. Now, because it is due to overstimulation of beta 1 adrenergic receptor, so if we really block them, then this overstimulation is also blocked, and thus we have avoided this cardiac arrhythmias, right? So, though the heart is beating slowly, but it is beating properly. Right? So, these are the two major reasons. Now, as we are discussing this, say beta blockers, right? They should not be given. Yeah, cardiac muscle get damaged. Yes, once damaged, damaged forever. We talked about it. That one is heart and second is our brain. Anything if it is damaged, so it is damaged forever. Forever. It never recovers. That's the reason that you'll be able to figure out old infarcts, right? That after watching ECG, you can figure out that in past there was, say, myocardial infarction. Because the muscles which are dead, obviously there won't be any electrical conduction via those muscles. So it immediately the current would be deflected to other areas and you'll be able to see that thing in your ECG, right? So you'll be able to tell to your patient that this is where the old infarct was, the location, and that is like permanent. Achha, what we were talking about is not to be given, right? Beta blockers not to be given. When it should not be given? Not to be given in case of one, when there is bradycardia. Bradycardia. Bradycardia is when the heart rate is already very low. Heart rate is very low. Second, when there is heart block, right? There are various stages, various types of heart blocks, but when there is a conduction problem, right? Or the third is when there is homeostatic or the hemodynamic instability, right? There is hemodynamic instability. All these things, that is when the blood pressure, etc., right? They are not stable. In such conditions, it is not advisable. Obviously, in medicine, we'll go, or in cardiology also, we'll be discussing it more, right? Another question which was asked, which are the drugs which are to be given? Well, there are many, but the commonest, yes, heart attack, heart failure, and cardiac arrest all are different. Yes, they are different. Achha. The drugs which are commonly used, right? So one is metoprolol. Metoprolol is very common. By alpha 1 against, yeah. So bisoprolol. These are the common. Another one is carvedilol, right? That is also very common. Carvedilol. So these are some common drugs which are used. Okay. Another email was about. Another email is about, and there are many emails in fact about this, that we have joined just recently. What about the missed lectures? Right, I'll answer it a bit quick. Say all the lectures, they are present over here, right? On YouTube, on this channel, all the lectures are present. So the thing is, you can have two options. For the anatomy, right, in your spare time, start with lecture 1 and finish all of them. In physiology, today is I think 8th one. So if you have missed any one of the previous one, yes, it is advisable to start with one and proceed. Right? But in any case, even if you attend the whichever is going on, right? So usually there won't be a major problem, and in case if there is any problem, you can always ask. So I'll just explain that concept and we'll move further. third question, which was that what would be my pay scale after I complete my MBBS, and will I be able to pay loans, etc. Right? Regarding this financial part, there were two, three mails about this financial part. One, well, it is said that any of the doctor, if you have studied properly, you won't have to worry about your pay scale because it would be very nice, right? It won't be that bad. But say, as it is said that as your experience increases, right? As your experience increases, the pay scale rises. That is very true. Whatever you are, whatever the time which you are spending for your studies, trust me, it is going to give you great returns when we'll be talking about the pay scale part, right? The time spent in studies at this point of time will definitely be affecting over here at a later stage. Pay scale differs from city to city, hospital to hospital, right? So what one gets in, let's say, Jaipur, right? It would be very different than what one is getting in Delhi, or one what who is getting it in Mumbai, right? That would be very different, completely different. So I know many of the doctors, means say they are getting in the range of 40,000, 50,000 even to start with. Yes, you get it. And there are few who are getting in lakhs, right? Multiple lakhs. Not, I'm not talking about 1 lakh, or it's in multiple lakhs. And as you cross your post graduation, right, things go and they touch even much, much higher. Okay. Okay. Salary of doctor in Georgia. Uh, well, I have to figure out. I don't know really, so I won't be able to tell you at this point of time. But I have to ask, right? But the thing is, regarding this financial part, that if someone has taken the loan, right, if studied properly, they never face any problem in repaying it. That is what I wanted to emphasize. Second, books. Should we buy the books? Yes, why not? Buy the books. Go ahead. Because now is the time that you should be having books with your hand. Reference books, a big no. Right? I won't tell you, won't advise to buy any of the reference books. And finally, the last question, uh, that exercise, is it okay if we do 3 times a week? Yes, you can do it definitely 3 times a week. But ideally, it is said that is 100 minutes, 100 minutes a week. Try to reach at least this, right? 100 minutes a week, that is just by about slightly more than half an hour if you are doing it 3 times a week. And if you are doing, say, 20 minutes a day, so bus, that is like 5 to 6 days and you are through. Okay. So whether if you are comfortable with ebooks, well and good, right? Or if you have got habit of marking and writing, so that is also fine, right? In that case, you will be requiring physical books. 5 days a month, that is really less. Truly speaking, that is really less. And one very sensitive email was there that these heart attacks, they are increasing in young age, right? See, these heart attacks, they are increasing. Multiple reasons, multiple reasons. One, the lifestyle. Second, the pressure, the stress through which everyone is passing. And then the social media. Trust me, the social media. And on top of it, say all these channels, right? All these channels. The way they are dumping all the material, all the serials, and then giving such high IMDb rating. Seriously, because imagine how much time people would be spending, and those serials, they are having so many episodes, right? And such things are shown into these serials, that is, don't say, where it is proven that yes, parents are bad, right? They are not good. Those the decisions which that boy or girl is taking, right, that is a good decision, I don't know what. It's like parents, they are never your enemies, right? Or the teachers, they are never your enemies. At times, say my advice might be bit bitter. Yeah, I'm telling you that at times it might be bitter, slightly bitter. You might feel, kare yaar, instead of instead of giving the liberty, he is imposing so much of discipline. But I wrote in one of my mail, and I said to that person, "Ke beta, I am not your dushman, right? But what you are watching is 3 months from now. What I'm really watching is, yeah, 10 years from now. After 10 years, when you will be in your finest phase of the life, that's why these 3 months, these 6 months, they are necessary." And what I wrote is that leave all those things what you mentioned in your email, forget about it. Doesn't matter, you are not breaking anyone's heart, right? Focus on your studies. One day when you'll be successful, everything will be very nice. Same thing is for everyone, right? So don't be distracted by anything. And yes, I might sound bit heartless, but yes, it is needed. Men are at more risk world harm than, very right, Sunny. It is completely right. It's simply because of two major reasons. One, males and females. Males are idiots, right? That's the reason they get maximum heart attack. With idiots, what I mean is, क्यों? Why can't a male cry? No, seriously, why can't a male cry? And say, I don't feel bad when yesterday, when I went to that, after death, that Besna is there. That is that Shok Sabha, right? Yes, there were hundreds of people, but I cried. Means tears came in my eyes when I watched my friend's photo. I couldn't go near his photograph. I sat on the last chair. Silently, I sat for some time, and then I came back. Yeah, then I came back. People were laughing. Who cares, right? I lost one of my finest friend. So, and people were discussing कि बॉस शेयर मार्केट में आज कौन सा इसका रेट क्या होगा, वो क्या होगा. One, I don't have to say gali, but that person, as if he is a celebrity. हाँ, कैसे हो, कैसा चल रहा है धंधा. This is what people do. So one thing is that as a male, when say करे, if अगर जो आंख में आंसू आ गए, तो बस वो तो, इट इज वेरी बैड. इट इज अ साइन ऑफ, और द सिग्नेचर ऑफ फीमेल ही रोती है. व्हाई मेल्स कैन नॉट क्राई? बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इडियोक्रेसी. All the emotions, everything, all the pressure, male keeps on taking on himself. नहीं, किसी को नहीं बताना what others would feel. नहीं, किसी को नहीं बताना, अरे क्या यार. And that stress, right, that load, it definitely affects. Second main reason, and it is good when females they cry, but ठीक है, when they cry, at least मन हल्का हो गया, right? They'll feel relieved. They say कि they talk so much, right? एक दूसरे मतलब सबको बोलती रहती उनकी friends को. हाँ, तो अच्छा है, because by telling others, sometimes that load is decreased. It is not affecting your heart. And second thing, physiologically, right? This is scientific. Now, if people consider, if anyone considers कि ये तो is from person to person, agreed, right? I won't argue in that. But physiologically, females, they are much powerful, much stronger as compared to males. Physiologically, not physically, right? Not physically, physiologically. Multiple reasons. In case of males, there is only one sex hormone, testosterone, right? Testosterone. There is only one organ for urination and the reproductive. For female, estrogen and progesterone, two hormones. The entire reproductive system, that is extremely advanced. Extremely advanced. No way it can be compared to males, right? Second and third, if you really see weight by weight, right? It said that, say, normally weight of the female is less, but their efficiency, right? If you consider from the weight perspective, right, that efficiency of the body is much higher. So many reasons, and that's the thing that, and say males, now to even females also smoking alcohol, right? I have seen that, but still that number is relatively less. Why? Because when a male smokes, right, so then all those advertisements, they show that yes, he is a macho man, right? Ask a female, right? ऐसे रेलवे इंजन के भाई से कोई शादी करेगा या कोई कोई बॉयफ्रेंड चूज करेगा, राइट? दीज आर ऑल cousins of railway engine, right? धुआं निकालने वाला, that old railway engine. So, so no way. This is completely a wrong perception, because it is today only we'll be discussing that what really happens when such things occur. This smoking, etc. How harmful are they? Because they are so harmful, they will be decreasing the lung capacity, right? They will be decreasing the lung capacity. So when the real breathe is needed, right? When the real breathe is needed during that intimate uh, process, intimation process, so then this guy would be gasping. Matlab, he won't be having that much energy left out. Forget about other things. This is what really happens. So that's the reason that males, they suffer from so many heart attacks. Yeah, true. By crying, our heart becomes more powerful. That is also true. That is also true when you cry. But that is like you cry or you shout, right? So between bradycardia and the resting heart rate. Bradycardia is those when the heart rate drops below 60, right? And if we slightly go in more detail, this is the SA node, this is the AV node, and then this is bundle of His, and these are all called as the Purkinje fibers, right? This SA node is our pacemaker, because he is handling the entire automaticity, right? It is handling automaticity. Automaticity is without any motivation, without any impulse. It is sending the signals by itself automatically, and they go all the way to AV node. From here they go to atria, and the entire process. Yes, we'll discuss it. But so when it is less than 60, that it is usually called as the bradycardia. Now the resting heart rate, I'll just write RHR, resting heart rate, right? Resting heart rate, that is about 72 per minute. But this is also from individual to individual, right? As you exercise, as your efficiency, it becomes more and more and more, right? It leads to decreased in heart rate, because the power, that contractility has improved. So at rest, yes, it will go down, right? So there is no harm in it, but it takes time. It won't occur immediately. It takes years together. Gradually it goes, it starts decreasing, right? Till I was not using my this heart monitor, right? The Garmin's. I was also not knowing much about my resting heart rate, right? But someone have heart rate near 40 beats. Yes, say Bjorn Borg, that tennis player, his resting heart rate was considered as amazing. He was 36. It was 36. His heart rate was 36, and it was completely normal. But that is exception, right? That is exceptionally low. Otherwise, if any normal person is having heart rate near 40, so then it is to be checked. Immediately go for ECG, you'll get the idea. Right? Yes, with running, etc., heart rate goes down, right? My heart rate remains between, resting heart rate, it remains between 56 to 60, the resting heart rate. So when you run at a high speed, yes, you'll be able to take your heart rate to a higher level. Right? Yeah, obviously the cardiac output increases. So that with every beat, the large amount of blood is thrusted out and it goes into the entire circulation. Okay, so now we start with our topic, right? No, no. We can't say that whether he was from one community or other, but I just say that that's how people are. So insensitive. So insensitive. Resting heart rate, it should ideally be less. Resting heart rate is what? Resting heart rate means that when you are not doing anything, so then why your heart should really pump more blood, right? Why your heart should beat faster. Yes, if you are sitting silently, comfortably, and then you are watching a horror film, and then if you are very much involved into that horror film, then it's a different story, right? Then it can increase. I give you one small example. Say I was very much interested when in first MBBS. I was very much interested in designing the sound systems, right? In 12th also. So I created one graphic equalizer, and it was like 20 by 10 graphic equalizer. 20 by 10 means having 10 channels and each channel having 20 sets, 20 says controls, right? 20 controls. And then what I did is I connected multiple amplifiers and via that equalizer, and to these equalizers I at that time so I was having all those wired speakers, so I prepared those wired speakers. I put some speakers even into जो पंखा होता है पंखे के ऊपर there is a box, right? And then this is and then the fan is there. So I put even one speaker over here, and then there was a sofa over here. तो in the sofa पीछे की जो जगह होती है तो वहाँ पे खोल के, right, I put speakers over there and I set up the whole thing, and everything was set. And my father's one of the my uh, friend of my father, right, came and he came, अच्छा बेटा आप क्या बना रहे हो? मैंने कहा कि अंकल ये ऐसी सिस्टम बनाई है. नाउ इट वॉज अबाउट 11 o'clock इन द नाइट, राइट. वो बैठे थे जा ही नहीं रहे थे. मैंने कहा मैं सुनाऊँ? तो कहते हैं हाँ सुनाओ. तो आई जस्ट पुट द movie Evil Dead. As such, it's a very scary movie, right? And because these speakers, they were like frequency triggered speakers. Frequency triggered speakers, that means कि when that, obviously there is no other word, but when जब वो डायन चिल्लाती है ई करके, right, so it is a very sharp frequency which is more than say 17 kilohertz, because our audible range is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So at that time only that this speaker which is into the fan and the speaker which is just behind the ears, they are triggered. That was because of the equalizer. You know, he was so scared at that point. He said कि बच्चे मेरा हार्ट बंद हो गया 2 सेकंड के लिए, बंद कर दे, right? So heart rates, yes, I just recollected that yes, they are affected by these things. But it was like, and deliberately just to scare him, actually I increased the volume. तो जो रात को कोई 11:30 12 बजे, and I told my dad कि चलो अपने जरा डाइनिंग रूम में बैठते हैं, अंकल को देखने दो. वो गाली बोलते हुए बाहर आया कि ये क्या करके रखा है. Anyway, चलो let's start with our topic, and our topic is membrane transport, right? Membrane transport. So this is this classification, climaxing, right? So this classification, now it is based on simply ATP. Whether it would use ATP or not. Now there are several classifications, but this classification is effective because we immediately understand. We immediately understand that now all these things, how alpha 2 etc., they increase athletic, right, we'll take it in pharmac, right, or in our subsequent lectures when it will come, right. Now let's take our today's foundation, because this thing will take us to next level where we'll be able to discuss so many other topics, right. So again, this is like a very foundation topic. Okay, okay, thank you. Achha. So this is this classification which is based on ATP. Whether it will use ATP, ATP is needed or it is not needed, right? ATP not needed, but simple. If it would be needed, so we'll call this process as active, and if it is not needed, so then we'll call this process as, very right, passive. Simple as that. And as we are dealing with the transport, right? We are dealing with the transport. So transport is what? This is cell. Things are going out or things are coming in, right? They should pass the cell membrane. That is the transport. So we'll call this thing as either the active transport or the passive transport. All these things, they will be occurring via everything whatsoever is present in the form of receptors, right? So there would be receptors which will be ligand gated, there would be receptors which will be enzyme linked, there will be receptors who will be based on the ions, right? There will be various channels. These channels or these tunnels, right? These tunnels, they are not always open, right? These tunnels, they are not always open. They can be opened by some specific stimulus. That stimulus could be, say, electric voltage. So we'll be telling that these are voltage operated channels or the voltage gated channels. Means these gates open when the voltage reaches to certain level. This we'll see with complete clarity when we'll be talking about action potential. Right? Immediately you will understand that this is the meaning. Means gradually the ions, they are leaking. Slowly they are leaking. As a level comes, because that is a switch. The moment that switch comes, thak, and it operates. Give you one example. पानी की टंकी, right? पानी भरना शुरू होता है अंदर, right? There are few sensors. Let's say here is a sensor, right? When the water level, the capacity is, let's say, about 50 liters, right? So tak 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 पानी is भर रहा है, पानी भर रहा है, पानी भर रहा है, and the moment it is, right now it is 49 liter, and the moment it hits this sensor, tak, switch operate हुई, and that relay switch, it will switch off, it will switch off the motor, right? Motor switched off. ठीक, this is what is called as the triggered. Till 49.9 nothing happens. It has to reach to exact at that level and it triggers. Now water starts decreasing, right? So it's obviously it is getting consumed. So water starts decreasing. So there is one more sensor. There is one more sensor which is over here, right? Well, let's say which is at this point. And this is when the water level is, let's say this is 10 liters, right? Which is 10 liters. So as the water level starts dropping, right? And as it touches this this level, right? It goes below this level. And now this sensor is detecting that there is no water. So then it would reverse. It would operate that relay switch, but this time it will switch on the motor. Switch on the motor, right? So the entire game of on off, it keeps on working, right? And there would be always some residual water over here. Now how much water is left out, it depends upon what level you have set over here, right? This is how, or water filter tanks, yes, right? Logic gates, exactly, precisely, these are the logic gates, right? That's how they all operate. In fact, in all our computers, it is the game of logic gates only, because see, computer systems, they work on the system of binary, right? It works on the system of binary, that is 1 and 0, because computers, they don't have any emotions. It is either current is passing or current is not passing, right? So where the base is 2. So when we, even on calculator, when we type, when we punch, say for example 5, so what exactly is happening? It is like current passes through that circuit, then current stops, and then current goes again. It is 101, because 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, right? 2 raised to 0 is 1, so this is 1, 2 raised to 1 is 2, 2 raised to 2 is 4, this is 0, so we don't use it. This is 4 plus 1, 5. So this is the binary representation, and that's how it works, right? Same thing in all the circuits. Same thing. These are all logic gates, right? And, or, NAND, NOR. So that's how systems, they really work in electronics. Same thing is true even for our body, right? So this is like a constant process. So they are like on off. So triggered by voltage, triggered by Temperature, yes, the moment a specific temperature is reached, triggered by some specific ions, triggered by touch, right? Triggered by some chemicals, triggered by some neurotransmitters. Well, neurotransmitters are also chemicals, right? So, but that's how they will all be operating. The idea is whether ATP is used or ATP is not used. Either it is going to cost us or it is going to operate muft mein, right? So let's start with those processes which are occurring free, right? Free, muft, right? So in other words, we are talking about passive transport, ठीक? Passive transport. And this thing is collectively called as the diffusion, right? Diffusion, simple, diffusion, right? And diffusion, it always goes from higher concentration to lower concentration, right? Who will be moving? Substance will be moving, right? So substance shall move, right? Substance shall move, and it will move from higher concentration to lower concentration, right? So high concentration to low concentration. Let's see the example. Low concentration. And yes, ATP is not used. ठीक? अच्छा. For the diffusion, for the sake of our understanding, we again divide it into two parts. One, which is simple. Now, this is the concept which I would like you to understand very carefully. One which is simple. Simple is actually very simple. But second one, it is what is called as the facilitated. Facilitated. Achha, by the way, tomorrow we keep exam, right? Tomorrow is Saturday. So we do keep exam. Right? Just let me know. In exam, the material, I mean the syllabus, the entire physiology from day one till today. Right? Okay. Achha. So in simple diffusion, yeah, physiology. So in simple diffusion, the example is as we see in lungs, right? In lungs, in alveoli. So here is that respiratory membrane, right? That's the respiratory membrane. And when we breathe, right? So oxygen comes over here. So this is like inside of that alveolar membrane. And over here, there is vessel and it is having lots of CO2, right? And over here it is oxygen. Here also there would be some oxygen, right? But it would be relatively less. Here also there would be some carbon dioxide, but that would be relatively less. So here oxygen would travel over here and carbon dioxide will diffuse into the alveolar membrane passing through respiratory membrane. This is simply because of their concentration gradient. So this is what is called as the diffusion of gases, right? Diffusion of gases, right? Simply it depends upon the property of this membrane which is in between, right? Property of this respiratory membrane, because it will be allowing oxygen, carbon dioxide, and that's what it really does. Now what property? This diffusion, right? This diffusion, it depends upon one, concentration gradient, right? How much, what is the concentration of the substance on both the sides, and then the transfer starts. It also depends upon, now this is very important, it also depends upon how much is the membrane surface area, right? Membrane surface area. Now what exactly I'm trying to say by this? Membrane surface area. Say in COVID, right? My right lung collapsed, right? It was such a massive attack, my right lung collapsed. When right lung collapsed, That means this right lung, that entire surface which was meant for the carbon dioxide oxygen transfer, now it is not available. The load is only on the left. So obviously the oxygen level started dropping very sharply, right? But as things recovered, yes, it increases. Membrane surface area. How much surface area? Because bigger the surface area, right, more transfer. Less surface area, less transfer, right? So this is like a playground. How big the playground has been given for the oxygen carbon dioxide transfer. And the third important thing, yeah, uh, surface area, right? Not talking about thickness. Thickness, so now we are talking. Right? It is inversely proportional. It is inversely proportional to the membrane thickness. Membrane thickness. Right? Membrane thickness. So if this in between membrane, right, in between membrane is thicker, so oxygen and carbon dioxide, right, they won't be able to pass through that easily. It would be less, right? So that is what is called as the inversely proportional to thickness. Now let's see the example. Hmm. Yeah, you are right. You are right. The thickness part, right? So there is one is surface area and second is the thickness, right? Now say for example, in smoking, right? You know, we were telling that yes, today we'll be talking about the smoking. So let's see what normally happens, right? Normally happens. There is something which is called as the alpha 1 antitrypsin, right? Alpha 1 antitrypsin. So this is normally present. So normally it would inhibit. Normally it inhibits. Now when the person is smoking, so this there is, say this alpha 1 antitrypsin, right? Say this is negative of negative, right? Negative of negative. So it happens like when the person smokes, so this is deficient. This is deficient. There is deficiency. It is deficient. When it is deficient, so this inhibition process would go away, right? So it is this trypsin who is increasing that surface area. So now this trypsin is not inhibited. So now trypsin not inhibited. And this trypsin, what it would do, it would decrease membrane surface area, right? Under normal circumstances, it is inhibited by antitrypsin. Antitrypsin, right? So normally antitrypsin is there, so trypsin is kept away. So this trypsin is not allowed to pass through and decrease the membrane surface area. But when a person smokes, this alpha 1 antitrypsin is inhibited, so it is deficient. So now there is no one to stop trypsin, and this trypsin, if not inhibited, if not stopped, right, it would decrease the surface area. Result, result is result is emphysema. Emphysema, right? This is like I have explained it in very brief, but this is wonderful topics, that why it happens, that in spite of every, means all the bronchioles and everything is open, but still the breathing capacity that has decreased, right? It is because the surface area is now actually decreased. So lungs try to inflate, right? But that is when the chest is large, but the breathing capacity or the oxygen carrying capacity, alveolar walls, they get damaged. Yes, this is what really happens, right? So it is like an inefficient lungs. Inefficient lungs. Those lungs They are like just for showbaji, but otherwise they can't do anything. And what would happen in this case? Heart would say that yes, whatever the oxygen is available, let's beat fast and send this calm blood, calm oxygen to calm oxygen. Let's repeat it more and more times. So that leads to, say, tachycardia, right? What is called as the tachycardia. Tachycardia is when the heart rate increases, right? Increased heart rate. Heart rate. Right? We also talked about the thickness part, right? So there is one condition. So it could be because of so many pathologies, right? It could be because of smoking, it could be because of some chronic inflammation, but think what is called as the pulmonary fibrosis, right? Pulmonary fibrosis. When there is pulmonary fibrosis, simply what you very rightly said is that membrane thickness, respiratory membrane, 1 mm or less, right? This becomes thicker. So that respiratory membrane is now thick, right? Is thick because of fibrosis. So increased thickness, right? Increased thickness, and because thickness is inversely proportional to diffusion, so there would be decreased diffusion. Decreased diffusion. Decreased diffusion means there would be less. They show black tar of smokers. What is that? Yeah, this is what is called as the smoker's lung. I many a times say I'll show you those pictures also, right? In next lecture, I'll show you those pictures. It is called as the smoker's lungs. Smoker's lungs. Now, the way they show in that advertisement, बिल्कुल squeeze किया और इतना tar निकला. No, it's not like that, right? But smoker's lung, I'll show you one picture of healthy lung, and I'll show you the another picture of smoker's lung. You will get the answer. Seriously, it is actually when you will see that black tar, how it is deposited and how the color of the lungs they change and how beautiful the healthy lung looks like, right? Seriously. If thickness is very thin, then I mean what? When if the thickness is less, if thickness is less, so the transfer would be fine. But because this fibrosis, it takes some time, right? It is not so that someone has smoked one cigarette and pass, khatam. No, it is like a chronic injury. It is like a chronic insult of the lungs, and gradually the diffusion capacity decreases. Over here also, if you see, you must see that song. That is just a 3-minute song, right? Cigarette in my hand, right? Yeah, it's a very old song, but what I did is I added those graphics and I re-edited and remastered the whole song. Cigarette in my hand, I felt like a man, right? This is one by one what happens to that person as he starts smoking on and on and on. When the friends they say, when the girls, he felt that yes, girls would come to me, and gradually one day, when in the end it comes, right? With a cigarette in my hand, I was a dead man, right? So, so just when you search for it, na, you'll get that song on our channel. I edited it. I edited it twice. First, there was some problem in the lyrics, right? There were some mistakes, but then I really re-edited it, and then with perfect lyrics, I placed it. Right? So watch it. You'll like it, right? So that is where we say that this is like pulmonary fibrosis. Now, obviously, these transfers, when we discussed previously also, and the diffusion is also associated with diffusion. Diffusion is also associated with solubility, right? Because anything which is lipid soluble, which will really pass through the membrane, correct? So that is what is called as the lipid solubility, right? Lipid solubility. So that would be affected. And then there was one more thing. Smaller particles will be able to diffuse easily, right? So it would be inversely proportional to the size of the particle, right? All these points, they will be playing a major role when we'll be talking about pharmacology. Thickness is less than there will be load on heart to pump fast, then will heart get itself. It's, what exactly are you asking? If thickness is less than there, no, I'm not getting exactly what are you trying to ask. Okay, so now we talked about facilitated, right? Facilitated transfer. Facilitated transfer. So in facilitated transfer also there is no ATP, right? Just to recollect, where exactly are we? We are here now, right? So we are talking about diffusion. Diffusion in which there is no ATP is not used. One was simple, just by the gradient, just a membrane is there and things transfer. Now we are discussing, so this was our first point. Now we are over here on the second point, the facilitated transfer, right? In which there is no use of ATP. But in this case, what is needed? What is needed? The needed thing is carrier protein. Carrier protein. It is by holding the hands of these carrier protein, it will transfer, right? So these carrier proteins are needed always. Always. They will be needed always. See, when the alveolar walls are thinner than the regular size, so normally it won't happen because whatever, it is just a one layer of endothelium, right? One layer of endothelium, one layer, simple layer. But when it, yeah, when it goes beyond that level, so it is like an injury. That's right. It might get ruptured. Yes, it is like an injury. Exactly. Yes. Now see, these carrier proteins, we go for two types of carrier proteins, right? One for glucose, and second for water. For water, we call this as, we use this word aquaporine, right? Aquaporine. The pores which are for water, this is aquaporine. But regarding the glucose, this is a fascinating topic and it is what is called as the glucose transport. From this point onwards, we'll be calling it GLUT. GLUT, GLUT. This is glucose transporter, right? This is a glucose transporter. Now there are 5 glucose transporters, right? And you need to know all of them with complete clarity that where exactly are they used, where exactly are they present. But miraculously, they are arranged in such a way that it is extremely easy. And yes, I'll be asking it in exam, but I know not a single person will be making any mistake regarding the classification of this glucose transporter. Where exactly are they present? What happens when they go wrong? Not a single person would make mistake, right? Because it is amazingly distributed. So let's see. GLUT 1. When we say 1, right? This means I would write it like independent. Independent. Correct. Independent. So in this independent thing, the first organ of our entire body, who is independent, right? He is like a command center. He is like a big boss, brain. No doubt about it, right? Brain, no doubt about it. Second, placenta, right? Placenta, like a big boss, right? He's sitting in between. He's telling that, okay, that I'll be doing the entire work. So don't argue with me. So no one can argue with brain. No one can argue with placenta. Then those RBCs, red blood cells, though they are working, but they are quite independent, silently working. And cornea, right? These are the areas where GLUT1, glucose transporter 1, type 1, right? This is type 1 is present. Glucose transporter type 1. Do remember this cornea, right? You have to just put some effort, but otherwise if you really say for brain and placenta, that's enough, right? And the RBC. Moving on to the GLUT2. Very interesting method to remember about what, where exactly these GLUT2 or the glucose transporter type 2 are present, right? See how interesting they are. First one, when we say 2, so 1 is alpha, 2 is beta, है ना? That's how we say 1 is alpha, 2 is beta. So that's it, right? You have got the answer. It is beta cells. Now when I say beta cells, then I need not say further beta cells of islet of Langerhans, and these are present in pancreas, right? How cool. Pancreas, right? So that is, this is, put a star, because this is what, this is like a glucose sensor. This is like a glucose sensor, right? As the blood passes through these cells, immediately it checks that how much glucose is there so that further action can be planned. So this is 1. Then we are talking about 2. Which are the organs which are present in couple? Kidneys. हाँ, पहला तो kidneys. Yes, kidneys. Right. Then 2 lobes of liver. Right. 2 lobes of liver. Right and left. So it is present into liver. Then into the intestine. Now how to remember the intestine, right? This is tricky. It's the beta cells of glucose and alpha for insulin. That's right. That's right. So intestine, how to remember? So what I did is, let's draw the intestines, right? So we draw the intestines like this is what? This is stomach, right? This is stomach. Then after stomach, what comes? That is the duodenum, then the jejunum, ileum, है ना? So we draw it like that. This is how, right, intestines are. So because it is like our visual, we have to remember it visually. So now intestines for the glucose transporter will see this image. So this is how the intestines, they are arranged, right? So that's why it is GLUT2. This GLUT2 is very vital. If there is, right, we just go bit of clinical, you'll enjoy it. This GLUT2, if there is any mutation, right, if there is any mutation, if there is any change in this, and if they are not working properly, it leads to several syndromes. Yeah, it leads to several syndromes. One of the very common syndrome, it is called as the Fanconi-Bickel syndrome. So when this GLUT2 is mutated, it is called as the Fanconi-Bickel syndrome. Now this Fanconi-Bickel syndrome, as such, if you see, this is a glycogen storage disease. Why there should be glycogen storage? Glycogen storage, because this mutation is going to lead to glycogen accumulation, right? Because see, these GLUT2, this glucose transporter, if it is not working, then there is no one to transfer that glucose, right? So it will stay over there, right? So what would really happen? One simple thing. It will lead to hepatomegaly. Liver would be enlarged, right? Hepatomegaly. Then because glucose is not getting transported, so there would be glucose intolerance, right? Glucose intolerance, because there is no one to sense that glucose, that there is so much of glucose, right? There would be proximal convoluted tubule nephropathy, right? Kidneys would be affected. Kidneys would be affected, right? And short stature, right? Short stature, right? Height would be less. Now, but how the person would really appear as? Say this person, because this is mutation, so it is right from the birth, right? So there will be slow growth, right? There will be slow growth. And another important thing is that the bones would be fragile because see, it is affecting the entire metabolism, right? So fragile bones, right? Fragile bones because of the fluid shift, right? And then because of that frequent urination, because the kidneys are affected, right? There would be dehydration, right? There would be weakness, there would be tremors, weakness, right? Fatigue, all these things, they will be part of it. This thing, it is collectively called as the Fanconi-Bickel syndrome. Now, this Fanconi-Bickel, right? It's name of two scientists, and so Fanconi is one scientist, and Bickel was a second scientist, and it was their joint operation in which they said that basically this is like a glycogen storage disease, right? So it is like a glycogen glycogen storage disease. Important at this point is that it is because of the mutation of GLUT2 transporters, right? Hepatomegaly means increased in the liver size, increased liver size. So when we'll be discussing medicine, inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. So in that, inspection is just by watching. Palpation is like you feel, right? Percussion is right when you tap, right? You tap, and you try to find out that say if you tap it over here, the sound effect would be different, and if you type knock over here, it would be form, right? So when the things are hollow, so then it will be a hollow note. So that way you'll be able to find out the boundary of the liver, right? Whether it is enlarged or not. Tremor means convulsions, right? Convulsions, right? When the hand shakes, body shakes, that is called as the tremor. जब ठंड लगती है, right? That sort of thing. That is called as tremor. Okay. The next now we see is what is called as the, we were on GLUT2, right? Now we go to GLUT3. Glucose intolerance is that if a person consumes glucose, right, immediately it is washed off, right? And he is unable to take the glucose, right? He is unable to tolerate the glucose. Parathyroid will, yes, it is affected. Now this is GLUT3. GLUT3, 3, remember it like tree. GLUT3 is like tree. So in our body, if we were to draw a tree, so then there are very few things which will look like a tree, right? Which has got those roots, and these are like branches, right? These are like branches. Neuron, right? This is neuron. So this is where you will get GLUT3. That's right. This is where you will get GLUT3. So 3 is tree. Tree is our, looks are like neuron. Right. Moving on to the GLUT4. GLUT4. Now see 4, can you write 4 like this, right? Right? So do remember it like this. This is how we are writing. This is one part, right? And this one is second part. So write 4 like this, right? Okay. Why so? This is, I'm writing in small. This is insulin dependent, right? That's the reason why we wrote it like this. This is insulin dependent. So GLUT4 is insulin dependent. Where do you find it? Fat cells, right? Adipose tissue, right? Adipose tissue. Exclusively present into skeletal muscle, right? Those skeletal muscles, because it, and yeah, heart, because he will be requiring constant function, right? Achha. So if it is insulin dependent, what would happen if GLUT4 goes wrong, right? That leads to diabetes mellitus, right? The thing what is called as the type 2 diabetes. You know about diabetes. There are two types, type 1, type 2, right? Type 1, which is right from the birth, in which the pancreas are wrong, right? There is no secretion of insulin. So that baby is to be given those insulin injections. Type 2 is because of the lifestyle, right? So if there is less exercise, or if something goes wrong to the pancreas, if there is insulin resistance, right? So in other words, insulin is there, so either it is less, right? Either it is less, or even if it is present, but no one is caring about the presence of insulin, which is called as the insulin resistance. That leads to, say, diabetes, and it is called as the type 2 diabetes, right? So this is GLUT4 because it is insulin dependent. So that's how it really goes for it. On to the GLUT5. GLUT and 5. No, sorry. GLUT 5, right? We write like this, right? GLUT 5. GLUT 5 is fructose, right? It is fructose. And its importance is in fertility, right? Where is it present? Seminiferous tubules. What it really does? Fine movements of sperms, right? Fine movements of sperms. The seminiferous tubules, they are into testis, right? They are into testis. So this is, semen contains fructose. That's right. So this is GLUT5, which is present into this. Now this is also present into, also in GIT, right? Just to remember, right? It is also present into, say, GIT. Thank you. You see, the thing is, I can't cram. So that's what I feel, that same must be the problem with you guys also, you know. So that's the reason I always go like this. कि एक बार देख लिया, फिर you just close your eyes and then things start coming by itself. So it becomes much easier. Sorry. So that is the GLUT1, right? Now we start with, thank you. Achha. So till this point, what we discussed was all the passive ones. Now we talk about the active. active process. Now in active process, say as such tomorrow we'll be conducting the exam, but on Monday we'll be taking this active process, in still more detail, right? So even today we are discussing, but today you'll find that whatever we are discussing today for the active process is like a bird's view. On that day, right, that is mostly on Monday, we'll be going in depth. So here ATP is used, right? And the first thing which comes in mind that when the ATP is used is our all-time favorite, most loving sodium potassium pump, right? So this is when it is said that primary active transport. This is all-time favorite, non-stop working pump, right? And the second one would be the secondary transport. Obviously, secondary active transport is unsaid. So let's start with the sodium, potassium, ATPase pump. Now on Monday, say we'll be going slightly in more detail about the types of those ATPase, right? There are 4 types. So we'll see that what exactly they really do, because it is definitely not going to be asked in exam, but it will give you a good understanding, right? So when we say sodium potassium pump, yes, it is present everywhere, present in literally all, right? Literally all body cells. Because this process, whether we want it or not, it is working constantly. And that's why this is given a very nice name. It is what is called as the ubiquitous, right? Ubiquitous. Do remember, right? Interesting word. So it is a ubiquitous pump which is present everywhere, right? Present everywhere, everywhere. This will be utilizing obviously the, the energy, right? What type of protein it would be? Well, it would be something like this, right? It would be something like a path which will be created, and this protein is passing through and through the whole membrane, right? Through and through the whole membrane. This is our membrane, so it is through and through. Things which are going through and through, we call this as integrated or the integral or the transmembrane, right? Transmembrane, because it is passing through and through membrane, transmembrane protein, right? So we cannot isolate it. It cannot be removed, right? What this will do? It will make one very interesting thing. Inside environment, let's draw it on another page. Inside environment, this is cell. Outside there is sodium, right? Sodium, because it is the darya, because it is the ocean, right? Bahar pani pani. In samudra there is so much of salt, so there is so much of sodium. Right now we are just drawing sodium, not chloride, right? Does liver is the only part which can regenerate? Not, no. Liver can regenerate, skin can regenerate, spleen can regenerate, lungs can regenerate, right? Only heart and brain, they cannot regenerate. Otherwise, though, there are so many organs they are regenerating. Bones, right? Constantly they are, yeah, that's right. That's what I said, you wrote. Obviously, blood can regenerate. Yeah, very nice. Acha. So coming back to this, sodium everywhere, right? Sodium everywhere, and inside there is potassium. Now this particular pump, right? So let's draw this thing as a pump over here, right? This is a pump which is working, right? Not to the proportion. Okay. So here is the pump. This and this, right? So this is a pump. This pump is throwing sodium out, and how much? 3 sodium out and 2 potassiums in. This is what it is constantly doing, right? This is what it is doing. So this is sodium is to potassium it is into 3:2 ratio. That's how it is working, right? That's its coupling ratio. I'm giving you one word, and that word is what is called as the heterodimer, right? See this, heterodimer, heterodimer. Heterodimer means father of regeneration. Heterodimer is that there are two subunits of it, right? Both the subunits, both the subunits are different. Now, in case if you find any confusion that what exactly are these subunits, right? Just hang on till Monday, right? Where we'll be drawing all the various subunits and then we'll be talking about it. But these both the subunits, which are like alpha and beta, right? These are the two subunits, but they both are different. They both are different, and that leads to these anchoring function and all what we discussed, right? So in this, what are exactly these? These are like areas where there will be binding sites, right? This is like there would be binding sites. Binding sites for, well, the binding site for sodium would be connected, so binding site for sodium. Potassium would be connected, so binding site for potassium. ATP would be connected, so binding site for ATP, right? ATPase will come into picture, so yes, binding site for that. So all these are the binding sites which it will be having, right? So that's how this system, it really works. So this is primary active transport. And now we move on to a superb topic, and last one. This is the secondary active transport, right? Now this secondary active transport, this is secondary active transport, right? We talked about first the that passive one, right? And now the active one. So inactive one was this sodium potassium, and this one is secondary active transport. This is SGLT, sodium glucose linked transporter, right? Sodium glucose linked transporter. Just think it like picture abhi baki hai dost. This is just a trailer, right? Seriously. So this is sodium glucose linked transporter, right? We are just learning about, or we are just getting introduced to our actors, right? This is AKA, right? Also known as, right? Sodium. By the way, football match, right? We see. मैंने अच्छा किया ना. I didn't say that yes France will win. See, France has won. So sodium glucose co-transporter. Co-transporter. So this sodium glucose co-transporter means what? Sodium glucose co-transporter is where it is taking care of sodium and glucose, both of them, right? So how it works? Say there are two types. One which is SGLT1, right? SGLT1. So this is present in GIT. And what would be its function? Its function would be to absorb the glucose, right? So when, say for example, when oral rehydration solution, ORS, Argentina will win. I also think so. Messi, right? So ORS, when the ORS is given, but Dickin, I have not said anything, right? I'm taking my words back. So when the ORS is given, so this will stimulate SGLT1, right? So if glucose is given, right? If the glucose is given, sodium is automatically transported, and therefore it is called as co-transporter. Am I clear? Right? So in SGLT1, say for example, you are giving some glucose, right? You are giving glucose, and in ORS there is glucose and salt, right? Both glucose plus salt. That is our ORS solution, oral rehydration solution. So it stimulates the SGLT1. So it means the glucose is given, right? So glucose given, the sodium, right? Sodium is automatically transported. Sodium is auto transported. Seriously, if I go right in this, because see, in that case, so I was the person who was behind the defeat of Brazil and Portugal, right? And now if it happens in the final, so then see, I don't have to really do anything else, right? For every match, I'll declare that who will win, the opposite team is going to win, right? A very smart match fixing. Okay, so glucose given, sodium is auto transported. Don't change my profession, please. Right? So that's therefore it is called as the co-transport, right? When they both are transported together. Fine. There is SGLT2, right? Remember SGLT1, right? That is in GIT. So as usual, we'll write GIT. We write GIT. You got it? This is how we write GIT. SGLT2. LT2. Which organs? They are in couple. Kidneys. Right? बस तो अपना problem solve. SGLT2 is in kidneys. Right? And in kidneys, you will find it in proximal convoluted tubules. Right? PCT. Proximal convoluted tubules. PCT. Just for the reference, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but still, because of my habit, right? These are the Bowman's capsule, right? Then these are like proximal convoluted tubules, and then there is loop of Henle, right? Loop of Henle, and then there is distal convoluted tubules, and then there is collecting duct. ठीक? So proximal convoluted tubules. This is loop of Henle. In loop of Henle, we have got descending limb and the ascending limb, right? So this is called as the descending limb and another one is ascending. And this is distal convoluted tubule, this one. And this one is the collecting duct, right? Our Bowman's capsule. All good? So SGLT2 is going to be going to affect in this area, this area. So what it will do, 100% of whatever the glucose, right, it is given, it is reabsorbed back in proximal convoluted tubules by SGLT2, right? No other part of this is what our nephron, right? This is our nephron, correct? Nephron. Only the proximal convoluted tubule has got the ability to take back the glucose and none. Once the glucose has escaped this area, khatam. Now it has to appear in urine because no other part is capable of taking it back, right? So we write it very clearly that it is 100% of filtered glucose. Filtered glucose means the glucose which has been filtered by Bowman's capsule and it has entered into the nephron, right? This 100% of filtered glucose is reabsorbed back. When we say reabsorbed back, that means it is reabsorbed back in blood, so that it is not going into urine. Right? It is reabsorbed back in PCT, proximal convoluted tubules. None, bus over here only. No other part can really do this thing. Now this is very interesting. This thing is that what if the, see, very interesting thing, very interesting, right? What happens if glucose continuously flown through urine? Okay, just hold on this question, right? Just for a few seconds. If someone is having severe diabetes, right? His blood sugar is spikingly high. Blood sugar, blood glucose level is high. This blood glucose level is high, so we have to reduce it. One method is throw it in urine, throw it in urine, right? So that at least in blood it is properly maintained, right? So what we do is, let's do this SGLT2, let's block this. How smart the move is. If the SGLT2 is blocked, so that means this SGLT2 will not be able to do anything and the glucose will pass through that danger zone, right? From where it is reabsorbed back, right? So glucose in this case will not be reabsorbed, correct? And this glucose will go all the way into the urine. Fine. But there is a problem. The problem is glucose is one of the best culture media for the bacteria. Best culture media, right? Best culture media. Now, sometimes when you feel like their patient gali dete hain, right? That's okay. Bilkul juriya. But because it is the best culture media, the chances of urinary tract infection in such cases, it would be very high, right? It would be very high because it is one of the best culture media, right? So for the diabetes, sometimes when you tell कि चलो urine test is needed, right, for the that whether there is presence of any infection, right, they give you गाली कि क्यों क्या जरूरत है. But this is the reason, because they can develop urinary tract infection. Say drugs like canagliflozin, these all flozine drugs, right, where they are like flozine, right, flozine. When you come across these, now these drugs, they are bit expensive, right, as compared to like this metformin, right? They are expensive but very effective, right? Say it is canagliflozin, right? Canagliflozin. So this one, this is the full name. Similarly, dapagliflozin, right? So this flozine, when it comes, it works over here on SGL2 currently. So collectively they are all called as SGLT2 blocker, and this is, never ignore this, because such subjects, they are highly susceptible for urinary tract infection, right? So canagliflozin or dapagliflozin, they are costly but very powerful, right? So this is one. Second, so we talked about SGLT1, SGLT2. Yeah. Okay. The next one. This is, see, we are talking about co-transporter, right? So when the sodium is getting transported, now the iodine comes. I'll also transport, right? So they are called as the sodium iodine co-transporter. Now you know it, right? They will be transferring together, right? So the moment iodine comes, first thing first, the thyroid, and you know it, that if I ask, where do you find sodium iodine co-transporter, right? Nothing to worry, right? That is the thyroid gland. Two other areas must remember. One, salivary gland, right? Salivary gland. And another one into the mammary gland, right? Breasts, mammary gland. Only recently it was figured out, and it was quite logical. I don't know why it was found recently, because it is necessary to transfer the iodine, right? So in the placenta, right? It is present even in the placenta. the sodium iodine co-transporter. These are the areas where you'll find these co-transporters. Obviously, this one is having the most important, the major role. Now I'm about to tell you some medicine part, right? Very, very interesting. Very interesting. It is simply the implementation of what we learned till this point, right? What we learned. Sodium iodine co-transport also in secondary active transport. Yes, it is secondary active. See, that's what we say, secondary active, right? So they all are going together, right? So this is like, say, in secondary active, they are making pair. So sodium glucose, right? Sodium glucose. So one is getting transported, second one is also going along with it, right? Say over here, say sodium iodine, so sodium is going, iodine is also uske साथ साथ चल पड़ा, right? So that's how they go. While in primary it was like they both were ulta. Sodium was going, so potassium was coming, right? From which direction you see. So this one is sodium. Now see, sodium, potassium, chloride, right? All now they are making a picnic. Co-transporter, right? Co-transporter. Now this is what you see in loop of Henle. Now you know where is loop of Henle, right? It is present in loop of Henle, right? And the advantage is when you study these things now, automatically so many things about the urine formation, what is absorbed, what is not, automatically you'll start remembering it, right? So those proximal convoluted tubule, and that's the loop of Henle, right? Loop of Henle. And we just talked about it, that it has got, say, ascending, descending, and the ascending limbs, right? You know about the diuretics, right? What diuretics will do? Sorry. The diuretics will allow the urine to pass, you know. So loop diuretics will block this, right? Loop diuretics. So in pharmacology, we'll be discussing at length, but just remember, loop diuretics, it will block this. Now, say sodium, potassium, and chloride, right? They were, when they are passing through that loop of Henle, they are getting taken back, right? But when the loop diuretics they come into picture, so sodium is excreted in urine. Sodium will go, right? Water will also move out. So this is what happens. This is what really happens, because see, it is the co-transporter. So it is the loop of Henle where things were taken back. ADH is, right, anti-diuretic hormone. Right? So diuretics is happening, anti-diuretic is saying no, no, don't let it go. Don't let the urine, don't let the water go out of the body. That is anti-diuretic hormone. This is ulta, loop diuretics. They are telling, Kare pani jao, right? So that's why it will lead to increase urination, right? So over here, when these areas are affected, so obviously that sodium, no one would stop that sodium will keep on traveling and it will pass into urine. So result of this loop diuretics, right? Result of this loop diuretics, it would be that sodium is excreted, and when the sodium is excreted, water will follow, so water is also excreted, right? That's the function of diuresis, right? That's the function of diuretic. Let it go. In hypertension, right, when the blood pressure is more, so you want to do two things. You want to decrease the load, so let the water go, right? Urine passes out, so the fluid in the body decreases. Blood pressure, the relative pressure on the arterial wall is decreased. Happy. Sodium is decreased. That's what we want. That's why you tell the patient, "Kare namak kam khana," right? So here we are letting that sodium out. What happens if this thing is mutated? Now comes the real interesting thing. This sodium potassium chloride co-transporter, right? This is when this, we take it on different point over here. Now, if mutated, that means if this transporter is affected. Now over here, I want to explain you two things, right? Very sensitive, right? But sometimes if this question is asked either in Viva or in any of the competitive exam, you will win. You will win. If it is mutated, then there is one hormone, there is one syndrome. It is called as the Bartter syndrome. Bartter syndrome. Bartter syndrome, right? This Bartter syndrome, if we really look at it, without explanation, now you know it. You know it, right? What would really happen? This co-transporter is not working, right? So it is working as good as loop diuretics. True? It is working as good as loop diuretics because it is not allowing that loop of Henle to take back the sodium and the water, right? So those things will start traveling into the urine. Perfect, right? So Bartter syndrome, if this co-transporter is mutated co-transporter means that transporter is not working, right? It is not working. So this is what is called as the renal tubular, right? It is called as the renal tubular because happening in renal tubules. Salt wasting disorder. Salt wasting disorder. Correct? Because salt is lost. Why? Because kidneys, they are unable to do what? Reabsorb. Kidneys, right? Reabsorb sodium and back to back the chlorine. It is not happening. They fail to reabsorb sodium and chloride. So obviously, when this thing is happening, it will pass into urine, and that's why it is salt wasting disorder, right? Less salt is suggested in high blood pressure, right? When the blood pressure drops, in fact, we say कि नींबू का शरबत दो and add some extra salt because sodium has got that tendency to raise the blood pressure, right? So this salt wasting disorder, and when the sodium is moving out, so then along with it, water also moves out. Remember, water follows sodium, right? Our oceans, water follows sodium. So that's the reason such patient will develop what? They will develop classically polyuria. Their frequency of micturition, that increases. When so much of water is going out, so there will be polydipsia. They will be feeling thirsty, right? Polydipsia. So this is increased thirst, right? And this is increased urination or micturition, right? Polyuria, polydipsia, right? Classically, this is what really happens. Now, so far, so it's all good. Just let me add 2-3 pages. Right now, there is a method. Does lumen also help in increasing blood pressure? Yeah, there is a complete mechanism of it, right? So that's why when we'll be learning the blood pressure control, right from the baroreceptors to kidneys, everyone will be playing a major role. That is, your sympathetic will come into picture, parasympathetic will come into picture. For blood pressure, heart will come into picture, because see, it is a joint effort of everyone. That is where everything would be integrated. This is the reason that control of blood pressure, right? It is a superb darling topic. So interesting, so beautiful, right? So that's what I have put it into my list also. That next week, when we'll be learning about all those active action potential, etc., then we'll be going for this hemodynamics, right? And in this hemodynamics, we'll integrate it with shock. So how we'll do that? Let's say person has developed severe burns, lots of fluid has been lost. So it is called as hypovolemic shock. The volume of the body, volume of the fluid, it has decreased, right? Now you know that if the volume is decreased, what you have to do, you have to go for isotonic solution, because you can't give hypo or hyper. Unnecessary, the cellular movement would start. But if you are giving isotonic, then the body fluid will start increasing. Only the extracellular fluid will increase. Extracellular fluid will increase, so extracellular fluid is into blood. So it will start generating pressure on the arteries, so blood pressure would be maintained, right? So that is where we'll see that how beautifully the entire thing is amazingly connected. Acha. Uh, a small thing which I was about to say as the last point, that this is polyuria, polydipsia, increased urination, increased thirst, everything fine, right? But there is one more condition, and first I'll draw it so that it would be much easier. So here is our Bowman's capsule. This is our proximal convoluted tubules and the loop of Henle, right? Loop of Henle, right? And the distal convoluted tubules, and finally the collecting duct. Okay, our Bartter syndrome, to be very specific, this is where it is affected, right? To be very specific, it is this, the ascending limb of loop of Henle. This is the exact area. Ascending loop or ascending limb of loop of Henle. Loop of Henle, right? So this is the area where it is picking up this sodium, right? Changing the color and giving you one more condition. And this is what is called as the Gittelman syndrome. This Gittelman syndrome, lemon also help in cleaning? Yes, lemon helps. Lemon helps, right? Gittelman. So this area, this area, this area, you know this area, right? This is distal convoluted tubules, correct? Distal convoluted tubules. So this is what is called as the Gittelman, right? It is Gittelman syndrome. Gittelman syndrome. So what really happens? It means there would be some change into both of them. These are two syndromes, and it is worth discussing that how they both are different. Now, though Gittelman is rare, but understanding it will make us understanding of entire process very easy, right? So here it is. This is our Barter's syndrome, and this is our Gittelman syndrome, right? Gittelman syndrome, both syndrome. I'm not writing syndrome. What lab test is to be done? Right? Simply, if you want to diagnose, what lab test? Barter's is affecting ascending limb of loop of Henle, right? Loop of Henle. So think it like the substances which will go out into the urine, that means they will be less into the serum. Are you getting my point? Right? If things are going out in urine, so obviously they'll be less into the serum. Correct? So in Barrett's, when we say, we check that yes, sodium is going out, right? Potassium is going out. So yes, we go for the urine test and we find that sodium, there is increased sodium, there is increased potassium. Agreed, right? In Gittelman also, it is affecting the distal convoluted tubule, and that would also allow you just check the urine and you'll find there is increased sodium, there is increased potassium, because it is also affecting the these co-transporters. But the difference is very interesting. The difference is because their site is different, you need to go for serum test, right? You need to go for the serum test. So in serum, that is the blood test, you'll find that there is decreased magnesium, right? There is decreased calcium, right? Sorry, calcium would come on that opposite side. Yeah, in say barters, right? When we are checking the, okay, so let's first finish this. So in Gittelman, in serum there is decreased magnesium because potassium is going more in urine, so there would be decreased potassium, correct? But the calcium would be high. Why? Because calcium will be reabsorbed. Calcium would be reabsorbed, right? This is in serum, that is in blood. In blood. And in urine, sodium, potassium, so they are standard, right? They are getting lost. But in urine, there would be, because calcium is more in serum, so there would be less calcium in urine, right? In urine, because magnesium is lost, right? Magnesium is also lost in. So this would be like calcium is one of the important part. This is what it will be making a difference in case of barters. When you check the serum, right? And when you check the urine, in urine, you'll find there is increased calcium loss. So it would be decreased calcium over here. If the calcium level is decreased, right? Also over here, the magnesium is either increased or it is normal in case of Barrett. But this one is very vital. See, the calcium is increased in case of urine. Now, what is dangerous, right? Calcium is increased in urine, and over here, this calcium is increased in serum. Serum means blood, right? Serum means blood. This means when it is in blood, so then it is reabsorbed, it is in blood, and it will lead to cardiac arrhythmias. Increased calcium can lead to abnormal cardiac activities. This is what can really happen, right? So many things, means depending upon what calcium level, but the beginning, right? It can lead to this cardiac arrhythmia. So this is a very important point to remember, just because it is based on a very fundamental thing, right? That here the calcium, and that's how you estimate, right? You just go for the urine test. In urine test, out of all those things, they will be quite similar. You just check calcium is less in urine, right? Otherwise, all other things are excreting. That means we are dealing with Gittelman. And if in urine, if the calcium is more, along with everyone, right? Sodium is more, potassium is more, right? Magnesium is more or normal. Calcium is also more. That means it is definitely Barter's syndrome, right? A very clear difference between both of them, right? Obviously, this B and C, they are near, so that's why they are like that, right? This Gittelman, right? This G is far than C, so that's why it is not, calcium is not loving it, so it is decreased in urine. Check is always in urine, right? So this is about how the transport systems they really work. And tomorrow we'll be having a test, right? Like every time, we'll be conducting a test where you have to, yeah, it is little man. It can also lead to atrial fibrolysis, atrial fibrillation, and uh, atrial fibrillation. Yeah, that is means all those are they are part of it, right? Atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, right? All they are the part of cardiac arrhythmias. Okay, so that's the thing for today. So wish you all the best for tomorrow, right? Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow, same time. Prepare nicely, study well, right? And like every time, we'll be conducting those test questions will be given. You have to answer them in your own style, in your own notebook, and then we'll discuss all the questions back, right? Thank you so much. Take care and see you tomorrow. Putting this file into our link, right? And I'll put the link also. Yes, about the resting heart rate. Yes, go ahead, go ahead. No problems. What's the doubt? Hmm. It's better if resting heart rate is lesser, but that day we found for 20 years age, heart rate must be 160. Yeah, they both are different. Okay, let's talk about it, right? It'll take a minute, but necessary. There is a resting heart rate, right? There is a resting heart rate when you are not doing any exercise, correct? As you start doing exercise, the heart rate starts rising. Now, if the heart rate keeps on rising, after some time, that heart would be tired and it is bound to go into failure, right? Because horse can run, but you cannot keep on beating the horse again and again, and even the tired horse, one day, that tired horse would collapse. So, till what level you can keep on beating this horse so that he runs effectively? Well, for that, that's the formula. For a 20 years, how we calculated that it is a 220 minus the age. Let's say for 20 years, it would be, this answer would be 200, right? Age is 20. 80% of 200, that 80% of 200, that is 8 to the 16, it is 160. This is the heart rate, which is okay, right? There won't be any problem. But this is when you are under load, when you're doing some exercise, right? So this is the level. If you touch, nothing to worry about. 160 kya, even if it goes to 170, still it is fine. This is ideal. But if someone starts getting breathless, right, at 150, so he or she should stop, right? Because body gives the signal. So resting heart rate is when person has taken rest and the number at that point, right? If this number is lower, so obviously person will be having more capability to take it to still higher levels, right? So that's how it really goes. This is only for when you are doing the exercise. Okay. So thank you so much. I hope it's now clear. Okay. Thank you and see you tomorrow. All the best. Bye bye.